All right, so this is part two. I'm still going to be answering the questions that were posed to Dr. Kirti Patel. So the third is, what do you believe? What do you believe are the key principles of Agartha, and how do you see this concept gaining traction in today's society? This is a great question. I want to thank the Matriarchy Times, and I would also like to thank the woman who posted this at the group for posing this question. I think that at the core, I want to suggest, I want to say before I get into it that my principles may not necessarily fully align with others. Like, we're not a monolith. We come from different backgrounds. I come from a far right conservative family with very little education in feminism. I went from being in a far right community to being in a misogynistic hate group to becoming a gynecologist. So I'm yeah, my principles might not necessarily align with what a gynecologist principles are if they had like serious parents who had a serious feminist upbringing, had a serious feminist education. They might have totally different values than I do. And also, I'm a work in progress. I'm constantly trying my best to not be the person I used to be. I have to fight that battle every day. So it's different. I don't pretend to be some kind of morally. I'm not. What I'm saying is I'm not a perfect person. I struggle a lot. So when I'm mentioning these principles, I'm no, by no. I want to say that I'm by no means suggesting that these are the principles of every gynecologist. But I do feel that the key principles of a gynecologist should be, first of all, principles that advocate for peace. Whatever principle you have, it should be related to keeping the peace. Uh, I consider gynecologist to be a mostly peaceful people, very, very tranquil. We like to have an equilibrium in our community. So I think that's part of it. I also believe that cooperation, like principles of cooperation, are essential for a gynecologist. We have to find a way to cooperate with each other without necessarily getting behind some kind of unified vision, which I will talk more about in a later video. Um, I did want to kind of go over that, tactics and strategies for these things and kind of like to how to psychologically get through that. So I would say peace, cooperation, and this is another thing. Gynocentrism is one of the core beliefs of Gynerkey. We're not like I'm gonna kind of do a bit of a detour because I want to talk about my personal family. My family's lives were destroyed by men who sexually abused them. Period. Their lives were just completely destroyed and fucked up. And to this day, they're still struggling with a myriad of health issues. In fact, I may have those papers right here. So let me see if I can find it first. I might actually be able to. I apologize for the momentary disruption. But a while back, I had to, yeah, here it is. I had to write out, because I had to write a letter to my, some of my local officials because I was concerned about changes to Social Security. So this is my sister right here. These are all the issues that she has and all the medication she has to take, right? Yeah. And then we have this. This is my mother right here. So you can see not only the list of conditions, you can see the medications that she has to take in order to stay alive and to function mentally. I hope everybody got a good look at that. The writing was done by my sister, who is who has far better handwriting than I could ever hope to have in lifetime. Like, my handwriting is this. Look at this crap. It's terrible, but hers is great. But anyways, all of that I just showed you, I truly believe that a lot of that was caused by the damage that was done when they were younger. The problems become cumulative, and that some people are just boom. So to me, if you're going to have any kind of if anything's going to govern a gynarchy or a gynocentric society, gynocentrism has to be a principle. Women have to take center stage, their needs, what they want, or more importantly, their well-being. This has to take center stage, and men have to take a back seat to that. Gynocentrism, to me, is a it's an idea that it is about balance. It's about creating a balance. And to me, when you think about what balance is, feminism, despite all of its attempts, never creates balance in society. There are still imbalances taking place everywhere. So, what is the problem? The problem is that the balance in place isn't becoming unbalanced because of an equal number of people from both sexes. The imbalances are created by men in general. They're the ones generating the imbalances not only against women but against the planet, against Gaia. They are causing so many different kinds of imbalances, whether it's relationships with their partners, with their even with their own sex, to pumping too much shit up into the air, too much CO2. So if gynocentrism, if you want to talk about what's key to a gynarchy or a gynocentric society, gynocentrism is a key. Always thinking about how that society or whatever that system is, how is that going to benefit women, and how is that going to ensure that they live a higher quality of life. That is a key element. I don't know any others right now. I haven't had some time to think about it, but I'm sure that there are others. So, obviously, peaceful principles, cooperation principles, gynocentrism. I would actually add another one. One key principle as part of gynarchy is nonviolent communication, like learning how to communicate with other people who are hostile towards your thoughts and ideas in a way that is nonviolent, that doesn't inspire future violence from them. There are ways of communicating that you have problems and issues without letting it escalate into a violent altercation or something equally ugly. And this is a very good question. I'm so glad they asked this. How do you see this concept gaining traction in today's society? This is going to be part of the video where, I kind of have to say that I don't think it's going to come from the communities we think it's going to come from. Obviously, there are people in the femdom community who have their problems with us. I mean, that's obvious. So I don't think that the concept, it's not going to gain traction from the femdom community. And I also go one further. I don't think it'll happen from the kink community either. What I think it'll be is I think it'll start to gain traction when the gynarchy community develops methods for interacting with the general public. In other words, I met somebody down the street who essentially said, "Yeah, that's the way it should be," or something like that. But they obviously there was the person seems like your average everyday individual. Doesn't seem like there's anything else going on. Not everybody who is a gynarchist is a domina or a submissive or like a guy who wants to be collared and owned or whatever. Not everybody who's into gynarchy is from the femdom community or the kink community. Some of these individuals are just your average everyday folk who have never been exposed to any serious discussions regarding these ideas. Sometimes they might think or feel a certain way, but they don't investigate those thoughts and feelings as deeply as other people do. So where is it going to gain traction from? It's going to gain traction from college students. It's going to gain traction from certain kinds of organizations. It's going to gain traction from English professors, because those are the people I suspect will do it. But it could also be certain kinds of majors, like maybe political science majors would take an interest in it. People in women's studies may take an interest in it. So what I'm saying is it's actually going to happen when the gynarchy community expands its focus outside of outside of the groups we expect to receive the progress from. When we start adapting ourselves and we start investigating every other group in society, sooner or later we're going to find out which groups are more receptive to our ideas and then have conversations with them. Because I've already taken this journey for myself. Once I realized that the femdom community wasn't doing it, that the king community wasn't doing it. Like I made a Discord group that's essentially dead. You get the very, very rare comment every few months, but otherwise it is dead. The people there do not interact at all. So where are they going to come from? This is where the Gynarchy community can't just sit on its hands. Once the Gynarchists from around the planet start doing research into their communities and finding out which groups are where are the pro women groups, where are the pro women individuals, where are the gynocentric people. When they start finding out and recognizing where the patterns are and who's who, that's when you're going to start to see it gaining a lot more traction. Because there are a lot of people out there who feel and think this way. It's just that they haven't engaged with it yet. They're essentially people who haven't undergone what's called the Gynarchic awakening. Once that happens, then it changes. So that's kind of odd, but that's what's going on here. The reason why it hasn't gained traction yet is because many Gynarchists are still trying to expand the concept within certain communities because they make assumptions about those communities and what they believe and feel that turn out to be incorrect later. But not all of them realize it right away because it can take years before you're aware of what's going on. Thankfully, I had years to actually see that no, it's, obviously they're making posts in their communities. They're either bad mouthing us or they're grossly they have gross representations of who we are and what positions we have. So it'll gain traction when we interact with other people, other groups in our in-person communities, and we do the research for ourselves. It won't happen by just finding people in the femdom community, the king community, who are also into Gynarchy. That's not what's going to do it. What's going to do it is when we develop systems and methods for that will guarantee and determine who is who and what is what. That's when you'll see it gaining traction. And it'll happen by thousands, and then eventually hundreds of thousands, and then millions. That's what I think will do it. But it's not going to happen right now in the ways that we've been doing it, which is, hey, you like power dynamics in your relationships. What about society? I think more people need to wake up to the idea that people may want something for their relationship, but they may not want that for their society or their community. So it's a case of you might be looking at the wrong crowd. Just something to think about. Okay, let's see what's next. In your view, how can Gynarchy address the power imbalances that exist in current societal structures? I don't know how to answer this because here's the problem, right? Some people believe that that we need anarchism, that we don't need societal structures. So if you don't believe in societal structures, then if there are no societal structures, how do you have power imbalances? Power imbalances are caused by institutions, right? These structures, like the institutional structures. So if you don't have those structures, then you don't have those power imbalances. And some Gynarchists are anarchists. Some of them believe that in order to have Gynarchy, you can't have social structures. You need to have like hives or communities or whatever. But if you're asking me, okay, how could a state or federal Gynarchy address power imbalances that exist in certain social structures? Well, if you make it more gynocentric right off the bat, if you have a society that becomes more gynocentric, it starts targeting predators more. Why? Because they're a threat to women's health and well-being. If you give women the tools to go after their predators, they will. Because in our current system, we have untested. We have rape kits that haven't been taken care of. We have rapists, most of which there's most of them go unconvicted. The ones that do, sometimes the charges are light or non-existent, or depending on the country, you're going to be slap on the wrist. I mean, I had a family member who only, like, of course, people spoke on his behalf to reduce his sentence, but 8 to 9 months or something for molesting a child. No, that really happened. Only 8 to 9 months for molesting a girl. And because of this forgiveness shit, this redemption fetish stuff that religious people propagate and put out into the world, that man got 8 to 9 months for essentially doing damage to somebody for the rest of their life. If you had a more gynocentric society, you would see harsher punishments for these criminals. You'd see crackdowns on the serious predators because the women know who the predators are. And the reason why they know is because they are the recipients of, they're the ones who receive most of the abuse from these predators. They have a tendency to go to them. So the problem, of course, is that people don't take women seriously enough. People don't do enough to shut them down. I mean, hell, in some countries, you could be a predator and get elected the president of the United States. So we know that every society is different, but if you have a society that's gynocentric and you give power to gynocentric people, especially to gynocentric women, and they're able to have control, they're going to do away with the predators. They're going to make sure that they stay behind bars and that they don't keep fucking kids' lives up, keep fucking women's lives up. The problem with the society today is actually the lack of regulation for predators. If you look at the data, it's the lack, not it's the lack of any proper consequences or regulation for the predatory behavior. That's what encourages it. A gynocentric society would not tolerate it. And also, I would suggest that such a system would also look different too. The social structures would be radically transformed with that philosophy in mind. Some people have suggested that it has been gynocentric all along, to which I disagree. It's not. The problem is that you need to get to a point at which you get enough people on the same page to go, look, I don't want this happening to my kid. I don't want this happening to my daughter, whoever. So let's give the power to the people who are the primary victims of the problems. And they will be the ones that put this shit down. That's what I think would happen. So I can't promise that they would fix every social ill or every problem. What I can say, though, is that if you give the victims of these crimes enough power in society to actually do good, they would. And they will. Some of them don't, in other countries, don't even want to report a crime because they don't like going through the bullshit in the system. They don't like having to re-traumatize themselves. You change things, you alter the structures, then you have more accountability. And with more accountability comes a more peaceful society, a society that has less people suffering in it, less problems, and therefore a happier society. Some people think that, hey, it wouldn't just be, I mean, because again, we wouldn't just be changing the structure, we'd change the prison structure too. I've talked about this on my own channel. We'd have house-based, I would. If I had a say in this, I'd say house-based incarceration system. I've already given all my reasons for that. It's as simple as this. I don't want men raping other men either. You know, I'm tired. Like, one thing that really gets on my nerves is I see some people who still make rape jokes about men in prison. None of it is funny. It doesn't matter whether it's against a man or a woman. None of this shit is funny. Dropping the soap, ha ha ha. No. No. I've suggested a house-based incarceration system because I know it would work. Would it be a little bit more socially isolating? Yeah. Yeah, it would. But you know what you could also do? If you really have to do it, you could have 3 or 4 or 5 prisoners in a home guarded by a few people. So they could get their social needs met. They could talk with each other. I just don't think it's a good idea to put hundreds of people in there because eventually there's going to be lapses in security and men are going to get raped by other men. I would completely change the incarceration system so that men could not rape other men. Period. Not only that, I'd have systems in place that would basically screen that, people wouldn't even dare. They get caught immediately. There'd be systems of surveillance beyond anyone's understanding that would catch these fuckers. So that's how I look at it. I look at it as if I had a chance, the prison system in particular, in a gynarchy, if I had a say, if somebody asked me what my thoughts or ideas about it, Just completely reform the prison system so that men can stop raping them. Because guess what? Some of those men are going to come back out. And then they're going to do it to people again because some of them don't give a shit. Some of them are like, fuck it. I'll go ahead and do whatever I want anyways. See, the thing is, for people who don't care about consequences, prison doesn't stop them. They'll just keep doing it. People who live consequence-free lives are a burden for everybody else who cares about consequences. So you got to be careful how you treat and handle those individuals. Otherwise, prisons are just places that produce more criminals and problems for society when they get back out if they fail to reform these criminals, especially the rapists. Because if you don't reform a rapist and the person gets back out and rapes another woman, the system becomes complicit in that, becomes responsible for that rape taking place. Because they didn't have the foresight to keep that person behind bars or to do a proper psychological evaluation of the individual and determine their level of remorse or not. Some people can fake it like the best of them, so you got to find some way to figure this out. You need to have some kind of policy, and a gynocentric policy is better than no policy, because we wouldn't tolerate that rape shit in or out of prison. I know I wouldn't. Like, no. If my son accidentally got falsely arrested for a crime he didn't commit, especially if it's like a violent crime, he was just falsely accused, I wouldn't want him going to a prison and getting anally raped. I don't want that shit. And it's something that we could easily prevent if we changed the way that we handled incarceration. It's totally within our power to do it anytime we want. Anyways, I'll see you in part 3.